And you're watching World Insight. Coming up on our program, lights, camera, and action. Chinese cinemas are back in business, a lot of them showing the film A First Farewell, the story behind the beautifully shot sleeper hit with the writer-director about the Xinjiang Uygur Autonomous Region right after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. We long for reunions after a long time spent apart, something perfectly captured in the recently opened domestic film A First Farewell. More than 170 days ago, Chinese moviegoers had to bid farewell to cinemas due to the coronavirus outbreak, but they returned in droves to see the movie featuring Xinjiang Uygur Autonomous Region's spectacular scenery through the perspective of 3 children in Xinjiang. It was one of the first films to appear on the silver screen on the first day cinemas reopened their doors to the public on July the 20th. On the opening day alone, despite strict social distancing measures in place in theaters, it raked in nearly 1.5 million yuan in ticket sales, leading the race in daily revenue at the box office. We got a chance to sit down and talk to the film's writer-director Wang Lina, who's originally coming from Xinjiang, on this beautiful story behind the film and also how to bring cinemas back to life. This time with real stories of the people in Xinjiang. And I'm joined by Wang Lina, director of the film A First Farewell. Lina, what a pleasure to see you. What a wonderful movie. Tell me about the story you're trying to portray in the movie.
那我觉得，对我来讲，它是对我童年时光的一段回述。
For me, I think this is a memory from my childhood. This film took nearly 4 years to shoot because non-professional actors were cast. I also hope that through this film, I can authentically present my true feelings and the imprints of time. This is, in effect, a long poem dedicated to my hometown and childhood. I think the poetry of life itself and this land, the simplicity and sincerity of people, they are the inspiration of this film.
那其实这个故事呢，发生在我的家乡。
Actually, this story happened in my hometown. Shaya is in the hinterlands of Taklamakan. It tells of 2 families, 2 children, Kalbinur and Isa. The 2 kids are innocent childhood friends, living their ordinary daily life in a period of their childhood, and they continue to say farewell in their lives.
一个告别，对。
I don't know. I've been thinking about a lot of movies when I'm watching this one. This is, of course, is once again in the wild, wild west of China. It reminds me a lot of movies, you know, like some of the Iranian movies, some of the latest movies that are quite popular in the world. Tell me more about whether those are some of the inspirations for you when you're trying to tell your own story.
对，那其实我也非常喜欢像阿巴斯呀、西兰呀。 然后包括贝拉塔尔这些导演他们的作品。
I really like the films of directors like Abbas Kiarostami. Their works are extremely poetic. As Abbas said, all poetic movies will last longer than storytelling movies. I totally agree with this aesthetic view. I hope that A First Farewell also is poetic. It can break through the barriers of linear logic through the poetry of daily life and reproduce the complexity and subtlety of life itself.
藩篱再现，就是生活中的复杂与微妙，或者是真谛与本身。
Why is it so important that you want to tell like stories of real life? Usually, real life stories are fresh. However, they could be low paced, and they would not be that dramatic. But why is it so important for you?
其实，在我还是一个刚刚成年的时候。
When I was just an adult, I watched Abbas's film, Taste of Cherry. It is about a middle-aged man suffering from bankruptcy. He slept with his family that night, but the next morning he left a suicide note, then was about to end life on a mulberry tree. A group of children passed by the tree. They asked if he could pick some mulberries for them. He did that. Those children ate and went to school happily. The man then looked up and saw mulberry shining under the sun. At that moment, he gave up the idea of committing suicide. He took the mulberry and ate it, also picked some mulberries for his family, then returned home and threw away the suicide note. This story has been enlightening for me until now, since it reminds me of my childhood. At that time, I lived in a small village in the hinterlands of Taklamakan, which is full of mulberry trees. Every morning when we went to school, there were some grandpas and uncles picking mulberries for us. Many years later, when I saw the story in Taste of Cherry, I felt that this is just life. We live in different countries, but at that moment, I feel connected and touched. It is a simple philosophy of life. In A First Farewell, I cherished the little moments in daily life that touched me, just like the mother and father singing love songs in the cotton field, singing that 8 heavens are not as beautiful as you. I hope what has left a mark in my life can be presented in my film.
Working with the whole family is kind of interesting, isn't it? That you are someone from outside, they are, a group for years. So how does that, what was it like for you to be that way?
那我一直觉得就个体的奥妙是非常珍贵的。
I think the mystery of the individual is very precious. What you can see is limited, but what you can create is infinite. That's what I love very much. I hope people in my film showed what their life is really like. This is what I cherish. It took me 4 years to finish shooting the film. And for 2 years, I went into documenting and cultivating close relationships with my non-professional actors to understand all the moments in their daily lives and the way they communicate. You will know what words will make them angry and happy. I lived with them and had meals with them. After 2 years of getting along, they no longer fear my camera. They said they could ignore the camera now. Some people have watched my film and said it looks like candid work. My actors and I get along like relatives. Kal Binur sometimes called me mother. So after having such a foundation, I started the shooting.
所以就有了这样的一个基础之后呢，那才有了第一次离别的拍摄。
When you say you're so familiar with this family, you're embedded almost in this family, what do they like the most when it comes to food?
这个完全考不到我。
This is easy. Their favorite meal is large plate chicken, because in Xinjiang, large plate chicken is delicious.
放羊，那他最喜欢吃的就是。
They also herd sheep, so they also like mutton. It's roast lamb or roast whole lamb or lamb chops.
Where do they like to go for fun?
最喜欢的是在庭院里，有好多人来他们家做客。然后
Their favorite place is the courtyard, where they play host to many visitors. They can have barbecues and dances, like a nighttime bonfire party. Because they are very hospitable, and there are grapevines in their yard, and the yard is large, every evening they invite musicians from the village to their yard. Together, they dance mashrap. When it comes to going out to have fun, I don't think they have this tradition. But these nights in the courtyard are their happiest.
About the editing of the movie, because you've been producing the movie for 4 years, that's a lot of material. You have to select the best, put the logic there, get the story correct, and make it fascinating. I mean, fascinating in a way that you like. How does that work? I know also the editor that you have hired is coming from another culture. I remember it's from France. So there seems a lot to be communicated about. Lina.
对，他说他第一次看到了这些，在塔克拉玛干很遥远的塔克拉玛干地的人的生活。
He said that for the first time, he saw what life is like in the hinterlands of Taklamakan. People are very sincere and touching. He also felt the story is particularly true and poetic. Of course, he made some creative changes in the film. For example, originally, the film ending was another one, but he gave the film a different but creative ending, which I think is very good. Because I lived with those children for 4 years, there were a lot of fixed views in my mind. But I think the new ending given by my editor is also good.
算4年的时间吧，然后有很多很多这种固定的一些东西，但是另外我觉得剪辑师给到的一个结尾是蛮清晰的。
Finally, there's a question I really want to ask you. Even though you are telling a story in the movie, I want to ask you about your life in Xinjiang and your reflection upon, many of the news stories related to Xinjiang these days. Many of them are extremely negative, very political. Some describe them even biased. Tell me more about what you thought about those stories and the Xinjiang that you know, the Taklamakan Desert that you know.
所以我觉得我可以分享的是，我从小就是我的父母那一代就到了新疆。
When I was a child, my parents and I moved to Xinjiang. My father was a photographer. He took pictures of Uyghur tribes here, and there I was sitting behind his bicycle. He used the lens to record portraits of many people. All of them built a very good relationship with my father. There was an uncle. When my father took pictures of him for the first time, he told me that people in the world are all relatives. I was really impressed by these words.
就像我为什么会讲起这个桑葚的故事，是因为我在童年的时候，我经常可以看到维吾尔族老人，然后他会地下铺个毯子，然后摇一些桑葚，就会。
In fact, when I was a child, I often saw old Uyghurs spreading a blanket on the ground and shaking the trees for mulberries to drop. They would say, "Child, eat some mulberries and you will be sweet all day." I think this kind of ordinary warmth, this kind of warmth between people's hearts is very touching. Even when we got into some old man's carriage, he would say, "Children, let my horse carry you for a while." He wouldn't say, "Let me carry you for a ride." He said, "Let my horse carry you for a while." And he also teased that if you can count how much beard he had, he would give us some grapes. So we started counting. But beard cannot be counted, yet we still got grapes. These are the things left in my heart. Now in the hinterlands of Taklamakan, people still sing and dance as before. They also have troubles in their lives, such as marriage, their children's education, how the family can live a better life. They are busy with these, but at the same time, they are enjoying happiness in singing and dancing. I think everyone in the world is like that.
Lastly, I really want to congratulate you for that movie. It's a wonderful movie. It's a beautiful movie. And meanwhile, it is the first movie they've shown in China after the COVID-19 pandemic. So congratulations, multiple times.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wang Lina, the director of the film, A First Farewell. My talk with Wang Lina, the filmmaker behind the film The First Farewell, a beautiful story about the lives of people in Xinjiang. That's all we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei in Beijing. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.